everyone and welcome back to Mariana Mas Books. My name is Mariana and today I am here with a different kind of video that was inspired by a video that Elle at Elderlings did recently. She did a video called Thrillers That Put Me to Sleep, and I'm not going to spoil the video for you because it's super funny and I'm going to link it down below so you can go watch it. But in that video, one of the things that is very funny is precisely the whole idea of thrillers putting people to sleep, because thrillers are supposed to keep you super engaged and on the edge of your seat. After I saw her video, I kind of wanted to do like a video response. What I want to talk about today are 3 weird things that bore me in books. And when I say weird things, is because these are things that are supposed to do the opposite of boring you. But I did want to shout out Elle and her video because I have never seen that type of video in BookTube before, and you have to go watch it. The first thing that bores me is too much action, specifically fight scenes and battle scenes. Those really bore me. From my recent reading, I can think of 2 exceptions, and there is 1, Robin Hobb, and 2, Gavriel K. Robin Hobb, because she does the perfect amount of action. It's slow pace, slow pace, slow pace, slow pace, and then she throws in an action scene, and usually it's kind of like one big action scene. There is no one and then another and then another and then the next page is another and then the next page is another. So I don't get bored and I do read them without skimming. And the guy Gavriel K, because his prose is fantastic and the way he writes action scenes is super different than anyone that I have ever read, anyone. In The Lions of Al-Rassan there is an action sequence where you don't know which characters are doing what. You know what's going on, but you don't know what is happening to who. And that sounds weird, but it's masterful. It's masterful. But this is not a Guy Gavriel K video, okay? I was just telling you the 2 exceptions I can think about. I just wanted to mention my favorite battle scene in books ever, and that is the Battle of Pelennor Fields, of course, from The Return of the King. So if you want to know what kind of battle I like other than Guy Gavriel K battles, Pelennor Fields, I had to give a shout out. Sorry, I had to give a shout out. But in general, no matter how much I'm loving the book, no matter how much I'm loving the characters, because usually if I love a character, I will forgive pretty much anything when it comes to plot, and I won't skim read because I want to read the characters. But even with characters I love, I skim read through fight scenes and through battle scenes because they bore me to tears. Especially when you have a battle in one chapter and a battle in the next chapter and a battle in the next chapter, or a fight and a fight and a fight, or you had a battle, you read it, you're like, okay, I'm satisfied, I read a good battle, and then, oh no, the enemy is coming back, and I'm like, but I just read one battle, are you really making me read another? And so I will just skim through them, because I skim, and then if I see that there is like an important thing that is not a super painfully boring description of where a sword entered and where it came out, then I will read that, and then I will continue skimming until at the end of the fight we know who won. I can think, for instance, of The Lies of Locke, Lamora, which is a book that I was really loving, and I really love Locke as a character. I love all his friends, I love the friend group. He's so funny, they're so funny, and I was having the best time until it became more action-packed. And I don't know, I can deeply care about Locke and love him, and I still don't care when he's fighting. Like, you know, those scenes of and then he grabbed my arm and he put me against the wall and he punched me in the face, and then I grabbed his fist, and then as I grabbed his fist, I can't. When I'm reading a novel, I'm interested in the story, and battle scenes and fight scenes are interruptions. You know how people always criticize sex scenes in romance books? Because it's like they're gratuitous, or are they really necessary? Why are you including them? That type of thing. It's the same thing with action, and it's not that I mind the blood or any gore. Like, I don't care. My problem is that it bores me. I don't care. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, the sword came out of your eye socket, cool. Why is this interesting? And I just want to add something to make it clear that I am aware that during fight scenes or battle scenes, you can have character development in the same way that you can in sex scenes, to keep the parallel with the two types of action scenes, sex and fight. And yes, you can develop the characters, you can build even the story, the lore. There are a lot of things that can happen in battle and in fight. But that is not always the case. Most of the time it's very self-indulgent, just for the sake of having like action, which again is why I don't skip, I skim read. To bring back, for instance, The Lies of Locke Lamora, there is a fight scene in a certain part of the book that relates to a certain piece of important character development, and I skimmed through most of the fight, and when by the end I became aware that there was a theme that was being brought back, I then paid attention and read through that whole part, because that was important to the development of the characters. I'm trying to talk around spoilers, so I am aware that that can happen, and it's not that I just skip it and like, ugh, boring. The example I used of like, why do I care that the sword came through your eye? I don't care, because usually those types of things don't even affect the story. They are added in for shock factor, but they don't impact the future of the characters, the story, etc. There are some times that it does. So if you have a character whose sword came out through the eye socket and they are blinded, and then that becomes an important part of their character, then that is not gratuitous. Then that is important to develop that part of the character and of the story. But most of the times you just have the added shock factor. It happens a lot with these types of scenes. So number one, too much action, and especially battles and fight scenes. Thing number two that bores me, and speaking of romance books, sex scenes. Oh my god. Again, as there were exceptions in the action scenes and fight scenes and battle scenes, there are also exceptions in the sex scenes. But generally, what I feel like is that sex scenes interrupt a very interesting story that is otherwise going on. You are reading a story, things are getting interesting, you're getting invested in the characters, you're getting invested in their life, the banter, I don't know, whatever, and then sex scene. And it's 3 pages of, in the same way that you get those self-indulgent descriptions in battle scenes of the sword entered here and came out here, you have the same type of self-indulgent descriptions in sex scenes that is like, I just want to keep reading the story. Now, yes, a lot of people read romance for the smut. I read romance for the romance. And my perfect romance book is a romance book where you have a romance and 1 sex scene, and I like it because it's romantic. If I want sexy, if I'm feeling like I want to read smut, I will pick up an erotica book, and that the point is the sex scenes and not the story, because also every single author writes sex scenes in exactly the same way. They all use the same descriptions, they all use the same way of describing things, and it's boring and it's super out of character. character. Most sex scenes are super out of character because I feel like authors think that they have to write sex scenes in a certain way, and I would love for romance authors to realize that when they are writing sex scenes, they should be in character too. One exception I can think of, for instance, to give you an exception like I did with the action, is C.L. Wilson? I never remember the author's name, but Lovelight Farms. I read this in December, and that is a perfect book because it's one of those slow burn, just one sex scene or two, I don't know, like one or two at most by the end of the book, and the sex scenes are in character. She's very good at writing them, and they are romantic because of that, which is what I like. You have authors who are very good at writing sex scenes. For instance, Talia Hibbert comes to mind, but she also adds in too many sex scenes. And no, you don't need every single sex scene to develop the relationship. Yes, there are some that do develop the relationship, but most of them don't. And so I will pick the one that feels organic to the story, where I'm reading and it feels organic, that it's moving into a sex scene, and then I will read that one and then continue reading. And then all the other ones that are just like squeezed in for the sake of smut, those I just skip. Anything I said during the fight scenes portion of the video can be applied to the sex scenes, and vice versa. Anything I said for the sex scenes can be applied for the fight scenes. In the end, the overuse of fight scenes and sex scenes are both gratuitous action sequences in books. So anything I said for either of the two can be applied for either of the two. So that would be point number 2, sex scenes in romance books. As I said, unless that is what I want, in which case I can pick up an erotica book. Moving on to point number 3, and this is the one that I think bores me, but I still have hope that maybe I will find something that doesn't, because I've always been intrigued by this and I would like to read something that doesn't bore me, and that is murder mystery and other types of mystery. Basically, whodunit plots. And the whodunit can be also not necessarily a murder, which I'm going to talk about a book, but yeah, mystery plots that ask the question, who did this thing? I first noticed this when I was reading the Outlander books, which I'm contractually obligated to say that I don't like the books and I like the show better. But I read the books because I love the show and I wanted more of the characters, and so I read the books even though I didn't like them. Go figure. In those books, there are a ton of murder mystery plots. The same as like what I said with the fight scenes, that even with characters I love, like Jamie and Claire, I couldn't care less about their murder investigation. So any murder mystery plot in the Outlander books, I just skipped, because I don't skip, I skim. It's a very similar word in English. Then, for instance, another example I can give you is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher, which is a fantasy romance book that was highly recommended by Talia Hibbert. And I read it and I was loving it. I was loving the hero. He was such a sweetheart. Just the type of banter and type of story that I love. And then it turns into a murder mystery. And I'm like, oh my god, and I didn't end up liking that book, even though I really loved the writing, the story, the world, the themes, the characters. Just the element of the mystery plot, the murder mystery plot, had the power of making me not like a book. If all of these elements I enjoy in a book, and just because there's a murder mystery I'm incredibly bored, that says something. And then I want to talk about a middle grade book that I read in December, which is called, I think, The Glass House. The reason why I said not every whodunit is a murder is because this book, there is no murder. There are other things going on, and I think in that case is stealing. I think things are disappearing, and so they are investigating who is taking these things. And that really bored me because I was like, I don't care who did it. You know what type of mysteries I like solved? You know what type of question keeps me engaged is why. If the book was why are these things disappearing, then I would have been super engaged. But because the question is who is taking these things, I'm like, I don't care who's taking these things. And so I don't end up liking. And as I said, that book I really highly recommend because it's super cute. Read it in December, perfect. And in the end, it really got me again. But there was a good portion in the middle that really lost me. And I think that is the book that made me realize that what I don't like is a who did this type mystery. Because what I like is a why is this happening, and that book is kind of a like in the end it turns more into a why did this happen, and then it engaged me again. I would be curious to sometime read like a procedural or something like that where the interesting part is the detective, like the detective is solving a plot but the actual character of the book is the detective and you focus on them. Because for instance, I like TV shows that are about detectives. So I've always thought that I'd like to try something like that. But because I think of the mystery part and I am kind of like, I don't know, then I haven't given them a try. They're not high priority, but I would eventually like to read some of those. And I've always been curious about cozy mystery. I feel like I haven't given cozy mystery enough of a try. And again, I would like to try someday. It's not a high priority, but I would like to try. So that would be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this chatty, rambly video that it was a bit different. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear in the comments what kind of things bore you in books, just for curiosity's sake. I hope you're having a good week. I will see you soonish in another bookish video, and in the meantime, I wish you happy reading.